This is Barack Obama, and you're listening to Fresh Air, The Alternative, with DJ Matt Werner.
Kid Beyond, I know that you've done a bit of work during the Obama campaign. I know that you did phone banking, and also on your website you have a bit about the coverage you did at the Democratic National Convention. I was wondering if you could tell our Scottish listeners who are very interested in the U.S. election and having Barack Obama as our president-elect, if you could talk a little bit about your work with Barack Obama.
Sure, I'd be proud to. Well, so I worked very hard to try and get John Kerry elected in 2004. And unfortunately, that didn't work. So we put a lot of hope and faith in Barack Obama. And as soon as he came on the scene, I was like, wow, I saw him speak at the 2004 convention when John Kerry was a candidate and said, wow, this guy's amazing. This guy should be a candidate. He's way more inspiring than John Kerry, as a speaker, as a communicator, as a rhetorician and a political figure. So I was very gratified when he decided to run. Said, well, okay, I'm going to do everything in my power to try and help this man get elected. A lot of people did way more work than I did. I was just one person. But, as a performer, it was gratifying to be able to do fundraisers to raise money for him. I did a fundraiser where we raised $20,000 for the Obama campaign, which, of course, in the grand scheme of a campaign is nothing. It's about 2.5 seconds worth of airtime for a TV commercial, but it all adds up. And that was really part of the essence of his campaign, was that he was not so much relying on huge donations from big money, but rather a whole bunch of smaller donations from average folks. So I did that, and I performed at the opening of various headquarters here in the San Francisco area. And I also went to the Democratic Convention, which was in Denver, Colorado. And I was in more of a journalistic capacity, basically. A friend of mine who's the editor of a weekly paper here said, oh, I'm going to the convention. You want to come? I'll get you a press pass. So I wrote daily dispatches from the convention about the speakers and about this sort of cultural vibe there. And if you go to kidbeyond.com, you can read a bunch of those. And I found myself, as a performer, it's funny, I found myself noticing the way they constructed their personas as politicians, as the speeches and the imagery, and that's really what stood out to me. And for better or for worse, at least in American electoral politics, the creation of the image and the mythos around a candidate, it's not necessarily about the candidate's position on the issues so much as sort of the mythical superego that the candidate can project through speeches, through advertising, through commercials, it's all very well crafted. So that's what I found myself focusing a lot on, and the intersection of politics and popular culture. And then in the last few weeks of the campaign, basically just tried to do as much as I could with my limited megaphone to email everybody I knew around the country and say, hey, we need you to get on the phones and call folks in what they call here the swing states, the so-called battleground states. That's who we had to convince. So I organized a bunch of my friends here and impelled folks around the country on my mailing list to go to their headquarters if they supported Obama. They don't, just because they're fans of mine doesn't mean they supported Obama, and I try and respect that. Like, here's the guy I'm excited about, but please, really I'm more excited about voting at all. I tell people, just vote. I don't care who you vote for. I mean, I have my preference, but turnout rates in America are so woeful. We're lucky if 50% or 55% of the electorate turns out to vote, and we're supposed to be this bastion of democracy. So really, it's important to me that people vote at all. But then people would get on the phones, and we would call folks in Florida or folks in Virginia or folks in Iowa or Indiana, these states where if we could just get 1%, 2% more people to come out and vote for our guy who wouldn't have voted, then we could win this election, and that's what happened. So I was just a small cog in a very big machine. But I'm proud of the limited amount of work that I was able to do to help get Obama elected. And I hope he can be a force for change and a force for good and positivity in the world. He's not a saint. He's not a savior. He's not perfect. He will make mistakes. Everybody has projected a lot onto him. Everybody wants him to be theirs. So he will inevitably disappoint some folks, including me, I'm sure. But that's the way it goes. You can't have everything. But I'm optimistic about American politics for the first time in a long time. And I hope we can undo a lot of the damage in terms of our own reputation in the world and our own big, muddy footprint in the world. So I hope that the election of Barack Obama can go in some small way to restore the tarnished reputation that the USA has in the world.
Great.
I know it's probably too long of an answer for you, but I'm passionate about this stuff. I mean, really, this is part of the reason why I make music at all. I mean, I obviously music can be a source of joy and a source of escape for people, dancing and losing yourself, and that's great, and I think that's vital. And also, I think that if done properly, art can be a positive force for social change. I don't like to hit people over the head with my songs or be too preachy, because I don't think that does anybody any good, but I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think that in some small way it allowed me the chance to make a difference in the world for the better.
So Kid Beyond, I'm curious, where are you going in the future? Are you currently working on a future album?
I am. I've started work on my next album. It's going to be a full-length album called Kid Beyond and the Interplanetary Love Army. It will not be all vocal. It's not going to be the all vocal thing that I did on my EP. It's going to have instruments and electronics. So some mixture of live instrumentation and sort of DJ-ish production. There may be some bizarre vocal stuff sort of sprinkled throughout, but I decided for this I wanted to sort of break out and explore sort of wider sonic palettes, if that's not too pretentious a phrase, and just sort of feel what it's like to focus a little more on the singing and a little less on the beatboxing. So we'll see what happens. I've started song number 1, this sort of Coldplay-esque power ballad called Cathedrals that I've been doing in my shows, and the rest of them, I've got about half the album written, and so it will be out sometime after it's finished.
Thank you very much, Kid Beyond, for joining us on Fresh Air the Alternative.
It's my pleasure, Matt.
So you have been listening to Kid Beyond on Fresh Air the Alternative. I am DJ Matt Werner. Thank you, and good night.